Got a goal and you just can't hit it? Well, fill up here and we'll help you get it. Learn the Goal Achievement Success System here on Goal Getting Podcast and put some gas in your goals to power you to the finish line. Let's go, friends. Rev up your engines and let's take off for success. Hello, goal getters. Welcome to Goal Getting Podcast. This is your host, Tony Woodall, and I am so excited today. We have an amazing guest with us today, hilarious, a man, Bob Stromberg, a comedian, speaker, and more importantly, a master of creativity, which we all need in our life for many different areas. Bob, welcome to Goal Getting Podcast. How are you today?
I am well. Thank you, Tony, for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you being here. And I know you are from is that technically the Midwest, North?
It is. I'm from Minnesota's in the Midwest.
Minnesota's right. In the Midwest. Well, welcome. Yeah. Hi, glad to have you on the show. Now, you are the master of creativity, a comedian, speaker. I was watching some of your stand-up routines, and you're a clean comedian is what I also understand. So can you tell us a little bit about what you do and how you do it?
Yeah, I have for years, actually for 40 years. I've reinvented myself several times, which somebody who's done something for 40 years finds them necessary to do that. But I'm one of a kind of an elite group of creatives who have managed to stay so and stay busy and fulfilled for 40 years, which is kind of a remarkable thing. I remember about 20 years ago, I'm almost 65 now, 20 years ago, people started saying to me, you know, Bob, you really need to think about passing the baton on now to the people coming behind you. And I remember thinking, I have a baton. I didn't realize anybody gave me a baton to pass on.
But you must have missed that original pass.
That's right. I didn't get it. But now at my age, I find myself going, I really do want to pass on to those coming behind me some important things. I do comedy. That's why I travel around the country. I do comedy. I'm basically a storyteller, and all kinds of events. So that's what keeps me busy and keeps income coming in. And then I teach creativity. I teach the process. I teach what creativity is to help people understand that.
Mm-hmm. So what is creativity?
Yeah. Well, there are two words that are helpful in understanding what creativity is and how it works. And the two words are gift and craft. Those are the two words. Creativity is a gift in as much as something of creativity is woven right into our very genes. I mean, we're born with it. You and I are hardwired with it. But we're not born creative. What we're born with is the capacity and the desire to experience creativity. And we all begin using this gift almost immediately as we move from infancy into early childhood. We begin experimenting with this gift. We begin experimenting with it through the medium of play. Right. I've had people say to me often, I'm not creative. You know, my brother's creative or my sister's the creative one in the family, but I couldn't create something to save my life. Well, to which I normally say, well, you're probably right. I mean, if you say you're not creative, you know yourself better than I do. You're probably not, but you used to be. When you were a baby, one day you rolled from your front to your back and you couldn't wait to try that again. And then you got on your knees one day and you're rocking back and forth. You did that for about a week before you learned how to crawl. And then you learned you could do that thing with your nose that made mom and dad laugh out loud. And that just tickled you. So you did it as often as you could. And then you piled blocks and knocked them over, and you held a crayon in your hand and pulled it over a white piece of paper. And or in the case of my 4-year-old son, who is now a grown man, he's an artist. You found a pink magic marker and colored in all the white flowers on the brand new couch. So, man, that was an exciting day in our family.
I bet it was.
Yeah. But all of this was experiencing the joy of creativity, and you were doing what we all did, and we were experimenting with that gift aspect of creativity, the capacity and the desire through the medium of play. All of our play as children was creative. In fact, even as adults, and I bet you know this feeling, Tony, even as an adult, when you experience creativity, it feels something like play.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So what happens to that gift? If it's a gift, what happens to it? Where does it go? Because I don't know what the statistics would be, but most people would say they're probably not very creative. Most people would say that, I think. And well, if you're a hungry child in Africa and you're hauling water for hours every day, there's not a lot of time or energy left over for play. If you're a child in our developed Western world here, when you go to school, you discover that you have to give the one right answer to the question. And at the end of the line, you have to write in the one correct word or the one correct number. And you have to circle the one correct multiple choice. And it gets harder and harder to experience that gift of creativity because here's the truth. Creativity doesn't work that way. Creativity is not about finding any one correct answer. Creativity is about playfully trying many possible correct answers. The gift is still there in all of us, but we can't open it up anymore. So you begin to feel that you're not creative. Other people are. You can see that. It's apparent, but apparently you are not. That's when it's helpful to start thinking about creativity not as a gift, but thinking of it as a craft. The gift is the capacity and the desire, but creativity itself is actually a craft. It's a skill. It's a process. And so like all skills or processes or crafts, we can practice them if we know the fundamentals, and we can get better and better, and I think the goal to set a goal to experience our creativity, I think it's a really, really valuable one, because creative people are joyful people because they're fulfilling a desire that's woven right into their genes. And when we don't experience that gift or master that craft of creativity, then there's always going to be a sense of something missing.
And I would agree. And I think we do need to use creativity and be able to practice creativity in all walks of life and careers. You're always trying to find a better way, a way to solve problems is the best thing about using creativity in a work environment. You're always trying to solve a problem. You're trying to make continuous process improvement these days. Everything is about providing value, and a lot of times that's coming up with a creative way to solve a problem.
That's right.
So exactly. That's right. And we just don't think of it, I don't think, as creativity, but technically, yeah, it really is.
Oh, absolutely, it is. And without it, I mean, we wouldn't have survived as a race without creativity. It would have been impossible. So, yeah.
Well, good. So, what are some of the things that you do to teach people or to get us where we can think about being creative? Is there tips or techniques, or maybe the top 5 things that you can recommend, or how do you go about teaching somebody like me, an old dog, new tricks about creating things?
Well, it helps to have an old dog teaching an old dog, first of all. So we're in good all right, good relationship here. Yeah, I have identified 3 fundamental disciplines that are a part of creativity. And they are, I created an acronym, G.I.T, GIT. I say, this is how you can get your Master's of Creativity degree. G stands for grab. You grab anything that grabs you emotionally. I mean, day to day or every day you do this. You grab anything that grabs you emotionally. So when you feel a little emotional tug in any of your emotions, by the way, I'm not talking weeping, but I might be, or I'm also talking about laughter. I'm talking about anger. Any of your emotions. Something grabs you. You grab it, you write it down, in other words, or you speak it into your phone, which is the way most of us would do it these days, or you type it into your computer, but you have it in a file. You have it in a list there where it can't get away. That you grab it, or else it will get away. You'll forget about it. So you're grabbing. You're not grabbing ideas. You might be, if you get lucky, if you're particularly creatively intuitive, you might grab ideas, but normally you're just grabbing thoughts that happen to you, or something you witness, an impression or an experience or a memory. You grab it, you write it down. Then you interrogate that. That's what I is for. You interrogate it, which means you ask questions of why are you still grabbing? What you're doing is what any interrogator does. You're trying to find the truth. So why are you grabbing me? How could I use you? What would your purpose be? What is it about you that I keep feeling when I keep reading over you? Now, sometimes this interrogation process, it could take 5 minutes, or it could take 20 years, literally. I've taken 20 years with a couple of pieces that I use every performance now. It took me 20 years to get them. They were on that list for 20 years. Kept interrogating. Now, then there is a moment, which I describe as the aha moment. Every creative person, whether they're painting or sculpting or writing or in a play or what, they understand the aha moment. That's the moment where you've interrogated what you've grabbed and you go, oh, there it is. That's what I can use you for. I can use you as a character in my novel, or I can use you in a scene in my play, or I can write a blog about you, or I know what you're at. I can use you for a story illustration in my public speaking. And that moment when a thought becomes an idea, that's the aha moment. Because once you have an idea, then you can transform it into your piece of art, whatever that piece of art is. So you grab and you interrogate and you transform. And the idea, Tony, is to practice these things over and over so that they become a habit. You and I have heard our whole lives that habits, you can form a habit in 3 weeks. Right. It's only recently with these advances in neuroscience that we've discovered that that's actually true. You can indeed, in 5 to 16 minutes of work on one thing or concentration on one thing, thinking about one thing for 5 to 16 minutes a day, in 3 weeks, you actually create a new neural pathway that wasn't there 3 weeks before.
Exactly. Yep.
It's not a good one. It'll fall apart unless you repeat that cycle 2 or 3 times. So now you're up to about 3 months. And most of us who have created habits, in 3 months, you got it. It's there for life. It's not going to go away. And even if you stop using it, you can get it back really quickly. So I encourage people to practice grabbing and interrogating and transforming for that 3 weeks to create a habit, because habits are wonderful things. They're so useful and so dependable. Think about this. When you get up in the morning, you put your shoes on, I'm sure. I don't know which shoe you put on first, your right or your left. You might not know either, but think about it tomorrow morning, because it's the same one every day.
Yeah. I'm totally aware of which one I use. And I do that as a matter of habit. Yeah.
Yeah. And if you try to put on the other shoe, it feels so wrong.
It does.
I was thinking about the way that after I take my shower, how I dry off. It's choreographed.
It is.
I don't think about it. But it is, if I'm not encouraging anybody to videotape me doing this, but it would be down to the very move, and it takes the exact amount of time, and I don't have to think about it at all. It's just happening. Exactly. So that's what you try to do by creating a creative habit, grabbing and interrogating and transforming.
So the T is transforming.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So that's actually sitting down and writing your talk. If you're putting together a public speaking thing, and now I've got my third point. I grabbed it, I interrogated it. That's the illustration I'm going to use. Now you start typing out, or you rehearsing. That's a part of for public speaking. That would be part of the rehearsal. Would be part of the transformation process as well. Yeah.
Yeah. I like the thought of writing it down, because when you started talking about this process, the grab, interrogate, and transform. When you talk about grab, and when you said write it down, I'm going, crap. I had this thought this afternoon.
Oh, yeah.
I went to a Toastmasters meeting, and this speaker, brand new speaker, is his Icebreaker, which is their introductory speech, their first one in the program. But he was so funny and very humorous. I loved what he said, and it brought something to my mind, and I didn't write it down, and now I can't remember it. Now that you mentioned that, I'm going, I should have written it down.
I have a app on my phone. It came with my iPhone. It's called Notes.
Yep.
A little yellow thing, and I use that. That's probably the simplest, cheapest app. It doesn't cost anything, but it's there. It's so simple, and I've got a couple files in there called grab files, and I just hit them, and I just, you don't need to, whatever it was you wanted to grab there, you can usually grab it in a very short sentence or 5 or 6 words, and you've got it.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's important to make sure you write it down as soon as you get that. That's a great point, and I'll start doing that from now on, because now that I don't remember what that was, it was something I wanted to really use as potential for a speech later and one of my presentations, and now I can't remember what it is.
It's gone.
So,
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So this process, you use this for just about anything to, build creativity as you're doing this. So it could be for, comedy that you do. It could be for speaking. It could be for ideas for work, whatever particular thought comes into your mind.
Every creative person uses this, whether they don't know it or not.
Right.
But it's really helpful to know it because if you don't know it, there are intuitively creative people. I heard this story. In fact, I saw a TED Talk by Sting, the artist, the singer Sting,
right.
songwriter. The guy has won 17 Grammy Awards. He's been nominated 38 times. He's sold multi-millions of records. He's probably one of the biggest, most popular singers in the last 100 years.
Yep.
And yet he had a time about 10 years ago, 11 years ago now, where he says, my muse went away. Well, I'm listening to this. He said it was just gone. I couldn't write. I couldn't. And I'm going, there's no muse. There's no muse. The problem was he had been creating intuitively for so many years, and he was surrounded by creative people and musicians and other artists and stuff, and that kind of kept him going. But he wasn't doing the job of grabbing and interrogating and transforming continually. Didn't make it a habit. So, and he actually went into an 8-year dry spell where he could not write a song, and not because he wanted to write. He was trying to write. He did not write a song in 8 years, and what brought him out of it, Tony, was he began remembering his boyhood, growing up in, and I think it was Manchester. It was a shipbuilding town in the UK. I think it was Manchester. But he began reminiscing about this, and he heard the dialect in his mind of how people spoke there. And he sat down with his guitar and started playing with the dialect. He'd never written a song in that dialect before. And he wrote a song from a man's perspective, singing in that dialect. And that led to another song. And that led to a song about a father giving his boots, his dead man's boots, they called it, to his son. He's going to take my job now. And as it turned out, it led to, he couldn't stop writing then. He was grabbing all these memories that were moving him from his boyhood. And he was interrogating and going, and then transforming them into songs. And it turned into a Broadway show called The Last Ship, which played, I saw it in Chicago a few years ago, played on Broadway for 7-8 months probably, went to the West End of London. It's going to be around for many, many years. Great show. Yeah, that all came out. It came out of his memories, grabbing memories that grabbed him emotionally, interrogating him, transforming him into songs. That's what got him out of it. But if he'd known that he could have been grabbing and interrogating and transforming all the time, that list would have been there. He would have been going to it all the time, interrogating it, and there's never a dry spell then. And this goes for anybody. This goes for business people. This goes for because you have to be creative in your work. Right. This goes for people in ministry. This goes for public speakers. This goes for inventors. Creativity is used by everyone, and if it's not, then there's something missing in people's lives.
Excellent. Yeah, that's true. Excuse me. So, Bob, I often talk about, along with habits, what is the one habit that you do every single day that helps get you going through the day?
Well, I am grabbing and interrogating and transforming every single day. I'm also prayerfully being thankful for the day that I wake up to every day. Every single day. And lots of days I look and I go, boy, this is going to be a tough day to get through. I've got to catch this flight, and then that one's going to be a quick one, but will I have time to drop off the rental car? I don't know if I'm going to make this. I'm concerned. I didn't get a chance to talk to this person, and I know that he had some concerns about how long I was going to perform, all these types of things. And I'll look at the day and I'll just go, how am I going to do this? And then if I calm myself and I thankfully, in my case, I just say, God, thank you for this day. This is not a given that I can even be here to do this. Right. I do not take it for granted. And there are so many things to be thankful for every day in the midst of the busyness and all of the struggles that all of us face.
Yeah, thank you. Gratitude is something that I think we all need to practice every day. And I think that's something I've started doing a little bit more of, because as I get older, I'm certainly grateful that I'm still here on the green side every day. So
that's right. That's right.
That's very important, and just grateful for the capabilities that God gave us to use that other creations don't. So
that's right. That's right.
I'm very grateful for that. So that's a great habit. Now, Bob, do you also have a quote that hangs on your wall that keeps you going every day?
I don't have a quote that hangs on my wall.
Oh, that's quite all right.
I'm sorry about that. I'd like to be more excited.
Not everybody has quotes hanging on their wall, so that's okay.
Yeah.
All right. Now, do you read a lot of books? One of the things we like to do is recommend books. Do you have a book that you've written, or do you have a book that you also recommend because it's helped you through life?
Well, I've written several books. Most recently, I wrote a book that I was seeking publishers for, and finally decided to instead of doing it through a publishing company, to do an ebook, and it's called Life on the Carousel. And my parents gave me. They gave me all of their family slideshow that we used to watch when I was kids. I don't know if you watched these when you were a child.
Yeah.
We had carousels. Every carousel had 100 slides.
Yeah.
They had 20 carousels, so 2,000 slides, which I knew to be in no particular order, by the way. And my dad was going, "What am I going to do with these?" And I said, "Hey, Dad, it's on me. I'll take them. You don't need to worry about this anymore." I really didn't want them because I remember our slides. They were so bad. So many out of focus slides and thumbs over the picture. And of course, they didn't throw away anything. And all those bad slides were in there. Well, I started looking through those slides, and you talk about being grabbed emotionally. It was like almost every slide was grabbed me, almost every one. And I interrogated them, transformed them, and basically I wrote a book called Life on the Carousel, and where I'm reflecting upon these various slides. And although they are my personal stories, the applications go much broader than just my life. So that is a book that I've written, and that's actually on my website. And I actually have some pop-ups that'll pop up. You can even get it for free, which is one I'd love for people to get it. Another book that I love, by the way, is Steve Martin's memoir called Born Standing Up. I recommend it to everybody. It's the autobiography of his stand-up career. Only that part of his life, but he is a remarkable writer, really beautiful writer, and it's a beautiful memoir.
Yeah, I love his portrayals that he's done in comedy. It's just a very special type of comedy. So
it is.
I'm going to have to check that book out. I haven't heard of that. So tell us how people can get in touch with you, Bob.
Well, the easiest way would be to go to my website, which is bobstromberg.com. And in fact, I will put together, when we're done here, I will put together a webpage tonight. Why don't we call it bobstromberg.com/goal getting.
Goal getting.
Okay. Yeah.
Cool.
And on that page, you can get to my whole website from that page, but I'll put that page together just for your listeners. I've got a fun 60-second creativity quiz there. 3 questions, multiple choice. And the name of the quiz is, "Are you as creative as Steve Martin?" And most of your listeners will not feel it's less necessary to take that quiz because they think they already know the answer.
Yes.
But the truth is they might be surprised. And it's what they learn is true about them and their creativity. Oh. There's a free 30-minute training video there on that page that I'll have for you.
Okay.
My ebook is there. And then also all the information about my course. I have a 6-week course. By 6 weeks, I mean it leaks out 1 week at a time for 6 weeks. It takes about 6 months to take it, called Mastering the Craft of Creativity. It's very comprehensive, very fun, about 15 hours of video, lots of fun performances, many, many interviews with remarkably creative people from lots of different fields, exercises to learn how to grab and interrogate and transform. And it's been really rewarding for me because it's changing some people's lives, and that's very exciting. And those testimonies are there as well.
Okay.
Also, I have a podcast of my own called The Wide-Eyed Creative. It's a very fun story-based podcast, and that's on my website as well, and I have iTunes and other places.
Right. We'll have show notes, and on the show notes, I'll have links to all of those items. And we appreciate you with the great generosity for our listeners by doing bobstromberg.com/goal getting. That is a great offer, and it sounds like a lot of value that you're giving to us. So we definitely appreciate that. And I know from my heart, just the GIT is a massive tool that I'm going to start using. I could have used it today, but I guess better late than never. But to be able to be more creative in our lives, in our careers, in our family life, anywhere is key. And I think having that tool, just 3 simple steps to be able to master that is a big plus. So thank you for that. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. And folks, if you want to also go listen, I'll probably put a couple of your YouTube videos from your comedy actors.
Sure.
Because you need to see this guy. He's very funny. He is very creative. The things that he can do with his fingers, well, we won't go there. But no, you need to see some of this stuff out there on YouTube that he does. It's a great act, great talent, great creative mind here, and great creative soul. So
I'd also love Tony, if any of your listeners, I know there are business people out there who have conventions and those kinds of things, and I speak often in corporate settings. Sometimes I'm just doing comedy because there's a need for that, and other times I'm doing comedy but also teaching about creativity and helping folks there too.
Okay. Well, that's important. Like I said, in business, it's definitely important. So, if you've got a one sheet or information that we can post on our website as well,
you bet.
I'd love to have that so I can have that and share it with folks as well.
Great.
Well, Bob, I appreciate you being with us tonight on Goal Getting Podcast. I appreciate you being on video and spending your time and your evening with us tonight. So thank you so much for the great generosity. And really, GIT is a great tool, folks, and pay attention to what Bob has taught here, because we want to be more creative in our speeches, in our dealings with our bosses, with our family. We want to be able to have a much more creative life and lifestyle. So I think this is great. Thank you so much, Bob.
You're welcome. Thank you, Tony.
Bob, have a great evening, and we'll chat with you later.
Hope so.